What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. We are continuing our build videos this season with a banger Void Titan build utilizing the exotic gauntlets, them Doomfist Pauldrons, just absolutely crazy for super regen and keeping it up while you're inside of the super. The Sentinel Shield specifically for our Void Titan. So we're going to go over our artifact, weapon options, as well as our abilities, aspects, and fragments, as well as our artifact mods that make this even better. Now right here with our abilities, aspects, and fragments, this will work in any season, and these Doomfists have always been so good with the Sentinel Shield super. So that's obviously what we're using, so we can throw that as well as use our charged melee to get our super back and get our throwing shields with the double that we get from our Doomfist. Now for me, I'm going Towering Barricade, Strafe Lift. You can use Catapult or High Lift if you would like. For my melee, I'm personally using Shield Throw. You can use Shield Bash as well. Very, very good for this because of our aspects that we have on. And then Vortex Grenades just seems like the best PvE option for my personal opinion inside of our grenade category. Now for our first aspect, we're using Bastion. So we cast our super, grants us an overshield to nearby allies. Casting our barricade also grants overshield to ourselves and nearby allies, empowering it able to regen slowly. Overshield from the allied bunker behind it extend the overshield duration. So when we have more people, it is nice to extend that duration. Now it pairs perfectly with the offensive bulwark right here, because when we have that overshield or inside Ward of Dawn, which we don't have with this, but we're going to have that overshield consistently because of our barricade. Our grenade charges are significantly faster, and we have increased melee range and damage. That's why I'm using the shield throw, so we can stay in cover behind that stuff, throw our shield with the Bastion and offensive bulwark proc, and those melee final blows extend the duration of the overshield. As you can see, we also gain an additional shield while in the Sentinel Shield, but because of Doomfist anyways, that just pairs perfectly with this build. Next off, for our fragments, these can be changed around depending on how you play, but I really like this setup with Echo of Leeching, so those melee defeats that we get with the shield throw start health regen for us and our nearby allies. We're going to have Echo of Provision, so damaging targets with grenade gives us that melee energy back as well, so we're going to have that perpetual feedback loop of throwing our shield, throwing our grenade, getting each other back when we do that damage. We're going to have Echo of Instability, so those defeats we get with our grenades cause volatile rounds for our void weapons, and we're using the Wave Splitter as well as the Titan Linear Fusion, so both of those with volatile rounds, and that Wave Splitter absolutely nasty just in general, and volatile makes it even better. And then last but not least, Echo of Starvation, picking up Void Breaches and Orbs of Power grant us Devour. This is nice for that end game activity, and with this we're going to be creating orbs everywhere with our abilities as well as our weapons, and this season Void Breaches have never been easier to create. The reason that those Void Breaches have never been easier to create is because of our artifact with these three mods. This is how I have it set up for this build. Specifically, you're going to want that authorized Void and melee mods on this because we're using our shield throw very, very consistently. Then we have Unto the Breach. Defeating void debuff targets creates void breaches for us, so that's one way we're getting them. Protective, when we pick them up, it gives us an overshield and refreshes our existing one, so this will help pair with offensive bulwark, giving us that melee damage increase and range for our shield throw. And then Supernova, picking up the void breaches, causes our next source of void damage to create a weakening pulse, so that can be our void weapons, our void melee, as well as our void grenade. Creates that weakening pulse, which will create us even more of those void breaches on those void debuffed targets, so you can see why we're getting so many of those, and these three are crazy for this season. And then we also have squad goals, so performing a finisher while we have Devour proc gives Devour to nearby allies, so just a little addition for this build. This can be switched off for something else, but definitely these three and Void and melee authorized is what you need for this build. Now, when we move on to our weapons right here, we're going to be using the Submission SMG with Subsistence Demo so we can get back our grenade a little bit faster, and I think it pairs perfectly with this build because it has the Wave Splitter to back it up, which we're using most of the time anyway. Switch to this when we need our grenade and need a little bit of energy ammo, but this thing right here with Wave Splitter, the supercharged battery, and volatile rounds, collecting orbs of power grants a period of maximum power that starts with automatically reload and sustained fire mode that suppresses targets. So this right here helps us to create those void breaches because the suppress is a void weakened target, or a void debuff target I should say, so that'll proc more of those breaches because of Unto the Breach. The artifact mod and just in general that suppression of targets helps a lot with volatility suppression. It's absolutely nasty. And then we got the type in triple tap firing line for that extra little bit of juicy damage in those end game activities, raids, dungeons, GMs, whatever it may be. Now for our armor mods, we do have two that can't be equipped right now because they have been disabled by Bungie, but they will make this build so much better. They go on our arms, as you will see in a second. You want to max out your resilience, strength, as well as discipline on this build so we can get that ability spam, help us to create orbs of power as well, and then that offensive bulwark, like I said, with our melee and throwing shield, super great for this build. Now, on our helmet, we have Special Ammo Finder, Dynamo, and a Void Siphon, so our Void weapons are going to create as orbs of power. Dynamo, since we're going to be casting our shield consistently for that overshield and offensive bulwark, when we throw it down next to enemies, we're going to get a nice chunk of super energy back, so we can use those Doom Fists to its full potential inside of that Sentinel Shield, and then Special Ammo Finder, obviously, so we can have Wave Splitter up basically the entire time. Moving on to the exotic Doom Fang Pauldron right here with Horns of Doom. Void melee kills gives us super energy, that's why we're using that throwing melee as much as possible. While Sentinel Shield is active, melee kills recharge the Sentinel throw, and then when we get defeats with the Sentinel throw, that extends the super just on hits, not even on defeats. So you can throw this in GMs, get it to bounce around 10 enemies, get a huge chunk of your super back, go in, use your charged melee to get the shield back, throw it again, and it's a nice perpetual of having that super up almost consistently. And I had it for an entire damage phase, which you will see in one of the nightfalls. So it is crazy how long you can have this up consistently. Now, we are using firepower to create orbs of power on those grenade defeats. Now, the two that we are missing right here is the momentum transfer. Causing damage with grenade reduces your melee cooldown, and then causing damage with melee reduces your grenade cooldown. So we're going to be using both momentum transfer and impact induction, but they have been disabled by Bungie for the moment. But once these are back, definitely throwing on momentum on one slot and then impact on the other. So like I said, we can get that perpetual feedback, throw our grenade, throw our shield, get an overshield, throw our grenade, throw our shield, just repeat. Moving on to the chest piece right here, we're going to have Harmonic Reserve for our Wave Splitter as well as our Typin with Arc Resistance. You can change that out for Solar, Void, Stasis, whatever you're going into, and then Charged Up as well because we're going to be using some damage buff for our Void weapon, so we want as much armor charge as we can handle. Onto the legs where our weapon surge is. We're using that triple void weapon surge, so our Typin as well as our Wave Splitter are getting about a 17% damage increase across the board when we have that armor charge, which you will see it just absolutely annihilates enemies. The Wave Splitter is disgusting in general, and with that 17% damage increase, even better. And then the Typin as well, that extra little bit of damage that stacks on type of firing line and triple tap. We're just annihilating everything, champions, bosses with that void weapon surge. And finally, when we move on to our class item right here, we're going to be using outreach. When we throw down our class ability, it's going to give us our melee back, Reaper, so we can get those orbs of power after throwing down our barricade, as well as time dilation, so that a void weapon surge will be up consistently or for a longer period of time. And with this build, with picking up a void breaches just picking up orbs of power. We're gonna have that armor charge up consistently with this build, so we can have our super basically forever and have that ability spam of getting defeats with our grenade as well as our melee throw. And then we're going to get volatile rounds, getting suppression from wave splitter, as well as our artifact mod is giving us those void breaches, the weakening pulse on our void defeats, whether it be melee, grenade, or with a void weapon. So this build is absolutely fantastic for any type of content you're going into, especially if there is a lot of ads to deal with. The super lasts forever and you can just mow down everything in your path. So definitely give this bad boy a try out. Works in GMs, like I said, raids, dungeons, whatever you going into. Obviously GMs, you got to play it safe no matter what, but this build works fantastic. You just have to switch out a couple weapons to deal with champions, but still very, very good, and would keep that wave splitter active as much as possible. So thank you guys again for the support. Absolutely killing it. I know I have been away for a little bit, been dealing with some stuff at home. Grandparents and stuff passed away, so we're dealing with the house selling and everything like that, but we are getting back in the flow of things. Got a couple more builds coming out here in the future. Vesper, Jai Falcons for our hunter, so be on the lookout for those. And again, I appreciate all y'all. Thank you for coming back to the channel. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.